different languages in Akkadian or from Akkadian in different languages. And finally, linguistic typology, or what is cross-linguistically accepted as the way languages actually behave. So our story begins with the decipherment of cuneiform in the early 1800s. Soon after that, Akkadian was identified and chosen to, the sibilant sounds were chosen, these three Latin letters to represent them, the Shin sign group, the S sign group, and the Z sign group. That's a little bit misleading, as we will soon see, but this model is still being used by everyone. It is based mostly on cognates between Akkadian and Northwest Semitic, that is Hebrew and Aramaic, whose dialects or spoken varieties today still distinguish this sheen from the samech. So, for example, the word for peace has a sheen in Akkadian and sheen in Northwest Semitic, but S in Arabic. And the word for to confine has S in all three of the languages. So these are what we would call cognates, or regular correspondences, that show the very strict rules by which these processes abide, or these cognates always follow. The first scholar to raise doubts and question marks regarding our understanding of the sibilants in Old Babylonian was Goethe, when he noticed a few things, among them mostly irregular correspondences, so words that have unpredictable sounds as compared to what we would expect. So for example, this verb for to give news or to give good news should have had sheen based on all the other Semitic languages, but it has samech. This can be explained through different ways, but we would not, I would not lay out the conclusions of Goethe. But the important part was just raising the question marks. The original theory, or the original model that we're still using today of sheen being sh and samech being sa, is based mostly on the transcriptional evidence from New Babylonian. So New Babylonian sheen is consistently transcribed by Northwest Semitic Hebrew and Aramaic sheen, and vice versa, and the same thing for samech. So this is why people usually assume that Akkadian had sheen in general, or the sound sh, but it's not necessarily the evidence that we've all been waiting for, because at approximately the same time, there was Neo-Assyrian, which had the exact opposite correspondence. So Neo-Assyrian sheen is consistently transcribed by Northwest Semitic samech and vice versa, and samech is by sheen and vice versa. So this has led scholars to assume that New Babylonian just represents the way that these sounds were realized in Akkadian, and that Neo-Assyrian had a simultaneous opposite shift, or switcheroo, between these two sounds, so that Sin and Shamach just like switched places, and which in linguistics we do not think is possible, because linguistic processes don't occur overnight, and if one sound shifts towards another sound, we would expect either a merger or a push to another direction, but not in the opposite direction at the same time. Sounds a little bit impossible. So, which brings me to the paper of my supervisor Streik from 2006 about the sibilants in Old Babylonian, the Berlin paper, which inspects all of the evidence regarding grammatical processes in Old Babylonian involving sheen and sibilants. And he comes to the conclusions that S should be S because that's the simplest solution and there's no reason to assume anything else. Z is Tsa, as we know from basically any other cuneiform language, that T plus S becomes Z. And sheen should be reconstructed as Sha, a lateral fricative, or Tra, a lateral affricate. He based this mostly on the infamous shift of sheen T to LT, which is quite rare in Old Babylonian, but much more common later. And also the merger, or the rule that L fully assimilates to a following sheen. He thinks that both of these are good arguments for it being lateral, and that the rule shin ti to esti, attested mostly in Mari Old Babylonian letters, shows that shin might have been an affricate because this could be the affrication rule. Now, I agree about the first two and about the lateral fricative hypothesis. I don't think that it could be an affricate because, well, first of all, it's not written with the affricate sign group ever. It does not metastasize in the GT with the T of the stem like other affricates. It is never the result of coalescence between T and S, and it is never deaffricated. So I think that is the solution, and if we adopt this solution for Old Babylonian and assume it was inherited to Middle Babylonian and Middle Assyrian, like for example Beretta assumed, this can explain the Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian evidence. So if Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian both inherited Sha as their shin, they could have merged it in different directions. So Neo-Babylonian could have undergone the shift Sha to Sha, like Arabic or Phoenician or Ugaritic, and Neo-Assyrian could have undergone the shift Sha to Sa, like pretty much contemporaneous Aramaic. So this is my proposal, and what I propose that happened to the Neo-Assyrian Samech that became Shamech is a push chain shift. So when Sha became S, as in contemporary Aramaic, this has pushed Samech away in order to avoid a merger. This is called a push chain shift. So Samech became Shamech. The same notion of push chain shift will also allow me to explain how we got Sha in the first place in Old Babylonian. So in the third millennium, if we look at cuneiform Semitic languages, we see that the shin sign group is only for interdentals, and that Zain also, the Z sign group also represents Samech, the phoneme Samech, and the S sign group was used for shin and sin. So this is what I assume to be the original case, or what we would assume, because these are the languages that were actually in large contact with Sumerian, so Ebite, Sargonic Akkadian, and so forth, Amorite. So the diachronic shift of Samech and Akkadian, as explained by Streck, or also by Yanais more recently, is that Sa became Sa, and this shift from Sa Samech to Sa Samech in Old Babylonian and later is what could have pushed Shin away from its original pronunciation Sa towards Sha. Okay. Now the question remains, why would Old Babylonian take this sign group to represent the lateral fricative? And I think that what can explain that is that laterals and interdentals are proven cross-linguistically to be similar and confusable. And I'm just going to run through the Egyptian evidence real quick that shows that not only we have reasons to believe that Old Babylonian had Sa, we also have reasons to believe that it did not have Sha. So Egyptian has both S and Shin, and when transcribing Aramaic and Hebrew words into Egyptian, we can see that Shin in Egyptian always represents Shin in Aramaic and Hebrew, and Aramaic and Hebrew Samech always represents Egyptian Samech. But this is not the case for Akkadian. So Akkadian Shin and Samech are not consistently transcribed into Egyptian. Egyptian Shin and Samech are not consistently transcribed into Akkadian. So this is another reason to believe that Akkadian just did not have the sound Shin before the first millennium. So to sum up, the classical dialects of Akkadian, Old and Middle Babylonian, Old and Middle Assyrian, just have no evidence for ever having the sound Sha. I think that this sound has developed in Neo-Babylonian and Neo-Assyrian from different sources, and that Old Babylonian has adopted realization for Shin as the result of a push chain shift caused by the deaffrication of Samech. Thank you.